One day my husband asked me, "Hey, how much money do we have in that vault?" I chuckled and said, probably around $500,000 in total now. The next day when I got home, there was a signed divorce paper on the living room table, and both my husband and the vault were gone. My name is Ilara, and I'm a 58-year-old working housewife. I still work hard at my job. My hobby is saving money. When I was a child, my mother opened a savings account for me. She told me that depositing money in the bank made the numbers in my passbook grow, and I found that very enjoyable. I started depositing a little bit at a time, starting with just $1, and enjoyed watching it grow. When my savings grew by a few cents in interest each year, it was a delightful surprise to my young self. Being fond of money and how it works, I worked as a financial planner and gave advice on asset management. One day, a friend from college told me an old childhood friend was in serious trouble due to debt. She asked if I could give him some advice, so I decided to meet with him and my friend. This old friend was a handsome man with a refreshing smile. My friend explained that despite his looks, he loved gambling and was struggling to make ends meet. I thought I might have some good advice for him. His name was Cyrus. As I listened to his story, Cyrus admitted he loved gambling, just like his parents. Even worse, he had taken on his parents' debt. He seemed quite worried, and I found his troubled expression rather endearing. Because my friend had asked, I gladly agreed to help him. Looking back now, perhaps I had a bit of a crush on him, but I never imagined this would lead to a series of troublesome events. I advised Cyrus to consolidate his debts and reduce his monthly payments so he could manage his life somehow. Not long after, Cyrus and I started dating. That friend of mine opposed it, saying, "I wouldn't recommend being with him." But we went ahead and got married. I thought that getting married would help us face Cyrus's debt together. My income is pretty good for my age group, so most of Cyrus's income went towards his debt. I made sure he cut ties with his parents to prevent the debt from increasing further, and I gave Cyrus a monthly allowance of $500. When Cyrus decided to cut ties, his mother yelled, "Ungrateful child! I wish I'd never given birth to you. It's only natural for a child to repay their parents' debts." His father also chimed in, "Where's that thieving wife of yours? I can't rest until I give her a piece of my mind. You don't belong to us anymore." My husband, Cyrus, exhausted from dealing with his parents' debts all this time, finally told them, "Enough is enough. I'm not your ATM. I'm trying my best here," and came back to me. He finally felt relieved to be free from my in-laws who constantly brought up their debts. Soon after, we had a son. Our son, Orion, is handsome, just like Cyrus. He's my pride and joy. Orion seemed to notice his father's lack of discipline and indecisiveness. Despite this, Cyrus's carefree character didn't change. He kept borrowing money from predatory lenders, dealing with loan sharks, and tricking friends into lending him money to gamble away. We went through a lot, but I managed to keep Cyrus in line. 23 years passed, and we finally got Cyrus's debt down to about $10,000. We were almost at full repayment when Cyrus received a call from his parents. "Please help us. Your father has collapsed. We're at the hospital now. Can you come?" "What? Which hospital? What's his condition?" "Your father suddenly collapsed and we had to call an ambulance." "Mum, pull yourself together. What hospital are you at?" Cyrus left work early and went to the hospital. He messaged me, "Ilara, Dad collapsed. I'm at the hospital now. I'm sorry I broke our promise and went to see my parents. I'm really sorry." "What? Your dad collapsed? So how is he now?" "He had a minor stroke. His life isn't in danger, but he shouldn't overexert himself. Both my parents are feeling low. I want to stay with them for a while. Is that okay?" "Of course, honey, go and comfort them. Should I come too?" "No, it's okay if you're busy with work. They might treat you poorly again." I gave Cyrus a little extra money for hospital visits. They probably couldn't pay for the hospital fees. Since then, Cyrus visited his parents often. Each time he took $200 or $300 from me. I guessed my in-laws were struggling financially and taking a little bit from Cyrus. It amounted to around $1,000 to $2,000 a month, but I let it slide for now. A year passed since my father-in-law collapsed. Both my in-laws had aged, and I guessed they wanted someone to lean on. My hobby, as always, was saving money. One day I took out my bank book from the vault and grinned. Cyrus, who usually wasn't interested, stared at me and asked, "Hey, how much money do we have in that bank account you always look at so happily?" "It's about $500,000 now," I answered casually. The next morning I filled out a divorce form, left it in the living room, and when I came downstairs for breakfast, both Cyrus and the safe were gone. I couldn't help but smile. Cyrus had been eyeing the money in the vault, and he had even planned to take the entire thing. It's almost laughable thinking about him struggling with the whole vault. We have a black cat named Nix, and we've set up a pet camera to watch her. Her antics are the highlights of my day. I always check the camera during my lunch breaks. One day while watching, I saw my in-laws and Cyrus having an unbelievable conversation in our living room. Cyrus's parents were flattering him, talking about how proud they were of him for living in such a nice house and having a good salary. They went on about how Cyrus should be earning more and not putting up with me. They said he could be living better on his own and could have saved hundreds of thousands by now if it weren't for me. I was stunned. Cyrus seemed to have forgotten that I was working hard to pay off his debts. I recalled how, in the past, Cyrus had struggled with debt from his parents, giving them cash every month. Yet now he was complaining about not getting enough from me while ignoring my sacrifices. Cyrus mentioned a bank book with a substantial amount of savings, around $400K to $500K. His parents eagerly inquired about it. They insisted it should rightfully be his. Cyrus agreed, even though he had conveniently forgotten that I'd been managing our finances and using my income to pay off his debt, leaving me with a modest allowance. Seeing Cyrus being manipulated by his parents while they eyed my savings was heartbreaking. I sat at my desk at work, tears streaming down my face as I held my phone. Despite my efforts over the past 23 years to support him and reduce his debt from nearly $200K to $10K, it seemed like all my sacrifices were in vain. I felt overwhelmed and deeply saddened, like I was drowning in my own tears. It felt like I was disappearing, on the verge of breaking down, but I made sure to record the conversation and sent the footage to my son. That day, I left work early, claiming to be sick, and headed to my usual bar. I drank heavily, spilling everything to the bartender. The bartender comforted me gently, saying, "Why grieve for someone who's done you wrong? You've done nothing wrong. Live for yourself." At that moment, my intoxication and love for my husband faded. I thanked him and said, "Next time we'll share a pleasant dream." When I got home, I went straight to my study and began to think about how to retrieve the bank book from the vault. I needed a plan. I was determined to show them not to underestimate me. I focused on gathering evidence. I checked the pet camera every day, and soon the ugly truth emerged. My husband was bringing a young woman home during his supposed work hours, about 3 times a week. I couldn't believe I had to witness my husband's infidelity when all I wanted was to watch our cat, Nix. Nix seemed scared and wouldn't come out, ruining my relaxation time. They betrayed me, and I couldn't forgive them. One day I vowed to punish them severely. One day while working, I activated the pet camera again. This time, it wasn't the woman, but my in-laws in our house. They were discussing how to take the bank book. "Is everything arranged?" they asked with unpleasant grins. "You must have thought of something, right?" "I'm thinking of taking the entire vault," Cyrus said confidently. "It'll be easy." The in-laws expressed doubt, but Cyrus assured them he could handle it with help from his dad. "The vault weighs about 120 pounds, he said. I was determined to bring these people down. If we had that money, we could go to the casino as a family. Cyrus even felt a bit bad about taking the money I saved up, but his parents reminded him that it was for his happiness. "You can't be weak," they said. "We're doing this for your happiness, remember? Besides, you've found a new wife, haven't you? Quickly divorce that woman. I need to divorce her too, so I'll leave the papers here." "That's right," they said. "We're waiting for the money from the bank book and the new wife, so I'm going to get divorced." I found myself strangely accepting of this plan. How desperate are these people for money? I sipped coffee at my desk, recording the scene on my phone. I wasn't even upset anymore. If they had such intentions, so did I. I was fired up to show them hell. The next day, when I got home, I found a signed divorce paper in the living room. Both my husband and the vault were gone. A smirk spread across my face as I had breakfast. I quickly filed the divorce papers and contacted my son. "Orion, your father actually managed to steal the vault. I can't believe he carried it. It's so heavy." "Mom, I think it's time to end things with Dad. Did he take everything from the vault?" "Actually, I moved all the money to online banking. The passbook is worthless now. The most valuable thing might be the safe itself, since it's so heavy. Should I file a police report?" "Yes, and it would be best to hire a lawyer too." "Right, a lawyer. I already have a private investigator on it, but I hadn't thought about a lawyer. Thanks." I reached out to a lawyer through my private investigator. I handed over the pet camera recording to both the police and the lawyer and waited. After a while, I received a frantic call from my ex-husband. "The passbook is empty. What happened to the $500,000? You tricked me. Where is it? If you don't tell me, I'm coming back to the house and abandoning Nix." "You just committed theft, and now you're threatening me. From now on, communicate through my lawyer," I said, and blocked his number. I reported the incident to the police and sent the recording to my lawyer. What a relief. This was what I wanted. Karma really is a pain. I got a call from the police shortly after. They had caught the thief. However, the vault was damaged. It looked like my ex-husband forced it open, and the contents were burned. My ex and his parents discovered the passbook balance was zero and, in frustration, set the contents of the vault on fire. Although it was his first offence, my ex spent a few days in police custody, while his parents were released with a stern warning. Once released, my ex broke into the house we used to live in. He shouted, "Hey, open up! I've come back. Call the police. I'm sorry, it was just a small prank. Let me in, let's talk. You haven't filed the divorce papers yet, have you? We're still married, right?" I told him, "Don't make a scene. This is no longer your house. I've already filed the divorce papers, Cars. We are strangers now. Leave or I'll call the police." He refused to leave, so I called the police. 10 minutes later, they took him away again. I then contacted my lawyer, explained the situation, and started the process for a restraining order. I also asked my lawyer to sue for emotional distress due to infidelity. Although we might not get much from his broke family, I was determined to get alimony. It turns out he broke into our house because his mistress dumped him, and he wanted to reconcile with me. His mistress quickly transferred $10,000 in alimony before disappearing. My ex's gambling addiction and financial troubles left him struggling. He now lives in a small, run-down apartment with no bath, constantly fighting with his parents. My lawyer informed me that he pleaded to reduce the alimony amount because he couldn't afford it. My ex, now on the verge of retirement but fired from his job, and his elderly parents, who found cleaning jobs just to scrape by, are barely making ends meet. Despite working 3 part-time jobs, my ex's gambling problem means that any money he earns quickly vanishes. There's no helping them. I had my lawyer tell them there would be no reduction and to stay away from me. If my ex is truly sorry, he should show it with money. If he had stayed with me, he planned to pay off the remaining $10,000 in debt by the time he retired. But he was swayed by his gambling-addicted parents-in-law. How foolish of him! That $500,000 represents my savings, which I started building from a young age. I always enjoyed saving up and updating my bank book. Now, I think I'll start a new one. I'm living a relaxed life with my black cat, Nix. My son visits occasionally and talks about his girlfriend. This time is for myself. I need to buy a new vault, one so large that no one can carry it. Right, Nix? I'm the happiest I've ever been.